The Zylaxian scout ship Eternal Vigilance emerged from hyperspace at the edge of an unremarkable solar system, its crystalline hull refracting starlight in mesmerizing patterns. Commander Vexthor stood on the bridge, his iridescent scales shifting from deep blue to purple, a sign of mild irritation. This was supposed to be a routine scouting mission of primitive spacefaring races, but something had triggered their long-range sensors. Status report, he commanded, four eyes focusing on the main view screen while his secondary pair monitored the crew's reactions. Single vessel detected, Commander, replied Navigator Zix. Small, primitive fusion drive, no quantum shielding, no apparent weapon systems. She paused, mandibles clicking in confusion. But there's something odd about their energy signature. Vexthor flicked his tail dismissively. The Zylaxian Empire had encountered hundreds of emerging species. The protocol was always the same: demonstrate overwhelming technological superiority, demand submission, and add another race to their carefully managed collection of servant species. Standard intimidation approach, he ordered. Power up the gravitic cannons. Let's show them. Sir. The sensor operator's scales flashed alarm yellow. The vessel. It's hailing us. This was unusual. Most primitive species could barely maintain their own ships, let alone detect and communicate with a Zylaxian stealth vessel. Vexthor's curiosity overcame his annoyance. On screen. The view screen flickered to life, revealing a sight that made the entire bridge crew fall silent. The alien before them was Bikdal, with pale skin and dark hair, wearing what appeared to be a simple uniform with patches bearing unfamiliar symbols. Greetings, the creature said, speaking perfect galactic standard. This is Captain Sarah Chen of the Earth research vessel Curiosity. We detected your emergence from hyperspace and thought we'd say hello. Vexthor's scales rippled with disbelief. No primitive species should have hyperspace detection capability, let alone speak galactic standard. Something was very wrong here. This is Commander Vexthor of the Zylaxian Empire. You will power down your systems and prepare for inspection. Resistance will result in your immediate destruction. The standard threat, delivered with practiced menace. The human's response was unexpected. She smiled. I'm afraid that won't be possible, Commander. We're in the middle of some rather delicate experiments. Perhaps we could schedule a meeting later, say, after we've finished cataloging the quantum fluctuations in this region. Vexthor's scales flushed crimson with rage. No primitive dared to dismiss the Zylaxian Empire so casually. Power up weapons, he commanded. Let's show these creatures their place in the galaxy. Sir, his weapons officer responded, gravitic cannons charging. Wait, something's wrong. The targeting systems aren't responding. Captain Chen's smile hadn't wavered. Yes, you might be experiencing some technical difficulties. Fascinating thing about quantum fields, they can be quite disruptive when properly manipulated. We've been studying them for decades. Did you know that a properly tuned quantum resonance can temporarily disable most energy-based weapon systems? The bridge erupted in chaos as system after system began failing. Weapons, shields, even their artificial gravity flickered and died. Only life support and basic propulsion remained. What have you done? Vexthor demanded, floating in the now zero-gravity bridge. Nothing permanent, Chen assured him. Just a small demonstration. You see, Commander, humanity has learned that the best defense isn't always a bigger weapon. Sometimes it's simply understanding the universe a little better than everyone else. She leaned forward, her expression becoming serious. Now shall we discuss proper diplomatic relations between our peoples? As equals. Vexthor, suspended in midair with his crew floating around him, realized that the Zylaxian Empire's standard first contact protocols might need revision. These humans weren't primitive at all. They were simply playing a different game entirely. Perhaps, he managed, his scales shifting to the pale green of submission. We should start this conversation over. Wonderful idea, Chen responded. And don't worry about your systems. They'll reset in about 10 minutes, just long enough for us to arrange a proper meeting. Oh, and Commander, you might want to inform your empire that humanity isn't interested in becoming anyone's servant species. We're much better as friends than subjects." As Vexthor watched the human captain's image fade from his screen, he realized that this routine scouting mission had just become anything but routine. The galaxy, it seemed, had just become a much more interesting place. His final thought, before gravity returned and dropped him unceremoniously back to the deck, was that perhaps the Empire's database entry for humans would need significant revision. Under threat level, he would personally recommend a new classification: do not provoke. The Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council was a marvel of engineering. Its vast crystalline dome, stretching nearly a kilometer into the artificial atmosphere of Station Alpha. Representatives from over 300 species filled the tiered seating, their murmurs echoing through the cavernous space. Today's session was special. Humanity's first formal presentation to the Council. Ambassador Julia Putul stood at the speaker's podium, her dark blue diplomatic uniform, a stark contrast to the flowing robes and bioluminescent displays of the alien delegates. She appeared calm, though her heart raced as she faced the assembled representatives of galactic civilization. High Counselor Zixthaner of the Meridian Collective raised all four of his appendages for silence. "The Council recognizes Earth's petition for full membership," his translator broadcasted. "However, there are concerns about humanity's rapid technological advancement. Some members suggest it indicates unauthorized assistance from established species." Scattered murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. The Protectorate of Unified Worlds representative, a creature of living crystal, chimed in with a harmonic burst. "Humans achieved faster-than-light travel mere centuries after discovering electricity. This defies all known development patterns." Julia smiled, a gesture that many species still found unsettling. "Distinguished representatives, humanity's progress is unusual, yes, but not impossible. We simply think differently." "Different?" The swarm queen of the Vexteri clicked her mandibles in derision. "Your species went from primitive combustion engines to quantum manipulation in less than 300 cycles. This is not different. This is impossible without outside help." "Perhaps," Julia replied, "a demonstration would be more convincing than words." She pulled a small device from her pocket, a simple cube of brushed metal. "This is a human children's toy. We call it a Rubik's Cube." The council chamber erupted in confused whispers as the image of the cube was projected throughout the space. Julia began manipulating it, twisting its sections with practiced ease. Humans have a unique ability to see patterns, to find solutions where others might not look. This puzzle, which we give to children, has over 43 quintillion possible configurations. Yet humans can solve it in seconds because we recognize patterns, we think in multiple dimensions, and most importantly, we never accept that something is impossible just because it hasn't been done before. She set the solved cube down. "We didn't achieve our technological progress through outside help. We did it because it's in our nature to look at problems from every angle, to try the impossible, and to keep trying even when we fail." The Arxen defense minister, a being of pure energy contained within an environment suit, flared bright red. "Pretty words, Ambassador, but they prove nothing. We demand proof that humanity—" A sudden alarm cut through the chamber. The station's gravity fluctuated, and the massive holographic displays flickered with emergency warnings. "Station core breach imminent," the AI announced. "Containment failing. Evacuation protocols initiated." Panic erupted as delegates rushed toward the emergency transporters. Julia's voice cut through the chaos. "Stop!" The command, amplified by her podium speakers, froze most of the delegates in their tracks. "Watch." She was already moving, fingers flying across her personal console. "Station I. Recognize emergency override pattern Alpha 7. Execute quantum stabilization sequence." "Pattern recognized," the AI responded. "Warning. Proposed solution violates 3 laws of physics. Success probability. Unknown. Execute anyway. The station's lights flickered, and for a moment, reality itself seemed to bend. Then, as suddenly as it began, the emergency ended. The core stabilized. How? The High Counselor demanded. The containment protocols were based on standard physics models, Julia finished. But if you approach the problem from a different angle, say, by using the quantum uncertainty principle to temporarily alter the fundamental forces within the containment field, impossible becomes possible. She picked up the Rubik's Cube again. This isn't just a toy. It's a representation of how humanity thinks. We see a problem, we break it down, we try solutions that shouldn't work. And sometimes, we rewrite the rules. The chamber was silent now, every delegate staring at the human ambassador with new understanding. And in some cases, fear. We don't want to dominate the galaxy, Julia continued softly. We want to be part of it, to learn from you, to share what we know. But we won't be dismissed or underestimated. Humanity doesn't just solve puzzles. We change the game entirely when necessary. The High Counselor's translator was silent for a long moment before broadcasting again. The Council recognizes Earth's petition for membership and suggests that perhaps we have much to learn from each other. Julia smiled again, but this time none of the delegates found it unsettling. Instead, they recognized it for what it was, an invitation to explore the impossible together. The red dwarf star cast a perpetual crimson twilight over New Eden, humanity's farthest colony. Once a showcase of terraforming technology, the planet's surface now bore the scars of a 3-month siege. The Krafthull invasion fleet hung in orbit like a swarm of metallic insects, their ships blocking out the stars. Colonel Maria Santos stood at the command center's window, watching the shimmer of the colony's shields as they deflected another bombardment. Her dark eyes reflected the flashes of energy weapons, while her face remained impassive. Behind her, holographic displays showed the desperate situation. Shields at 23%, power reserves critical, and no reinforcements expected for at least 2 more weeks. They're demanding our surrender again, Lieutenant Park reported from his communication station. They say they'll spare the civilian population if we lower our shields within the next hour. Santos didn't turn around. They've made that promise before. Ask the Centauri colonies how well the Krafthull keep their words. The command center fell silent, everyone remembering the devastating footage of what happened to those colonies. The Krafthull, a species that viewed deception as a virtue, had promised mercy there too. Colonel, Dr. Emma Chen, their chief scientist, stepped forward. I may have something. It's unconventional. Santos finally turned, a slight smile touching her lips. Doctor, unconventional is all we have left. What's your idea? Chen projected a hologram of the planet's magnetic field. The Krafthull use quantum-locked navigation systems. It's why their ships can move in such perfect formation. But what if we could use that against them? She manipulated the display, showing complex equations. We've been trying to strengthen our shields when we should be thinking bigger. This planet's core is mostly liquid iron. With the right electromagnetic pulse sequence, we could temporarily alter its magnetic field. And what would that do to their ships? Santos asked, already seeing where this was going. Their quantum-locked systems would try to compensate, but with a planet-sized magnetic field shifting unpredictably. Chen's eyes gleamed. They'd be like leaves in a hurricane. Lieutenant Park looked up from his station. But Doctor, altering a planet's magnetic field, that could have catastrophic effects on our own systems, not to mention the colonists. We've already prepared for that, Chen replied. Remember those unnecessary Faraday cages I insisted on building around all critical infrastructure? This is why. We can weather the storm. They can't. Santos studied the projections, her military training warring with the sheer audacity of the plan. How long would it take to implement? The emitters are already in place. We've been using them for terraforming. We just need to reconfigure them. 20 minutes, maybe 30. Another bombardment rocked the colony. The shields flickered ominously. Shields at 19%, reported the defense officer. We won't survive another hour at this rate. Santos straightened her uniform. Dr. Chen, you have 15 minutes. Lieutenant Park, send a message to the craft hull. Tell them. She smiled grimly. Tell them we accept their terms and will lower our shields in exactly 17 minutes. The next quarter hour was controlled chaos. While Chen and her team reprogrammed the terraforming emitters, colonial defense forces evacuated critical areas and helped civilians into the shielded bunkers. The craftful fleet, sensing victory, moved into a tight formation above the main colony. Perfect positioning, Santos murmured. They never considered why we'd surrender at such a specific time. Emitters ready, Chen reported. But Colonel, you should know, this will be a one-shot attempt. The power drain will leave us defenseless. Santos nodded. Sometimes the best defense is making sure your enemy can't fight back. Execute. Chen activated the sequence. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then the sky itself appeared to twist. The planet's magnetic field, manipulated by dozens of terraforming emitters, buckled and warped in impossible ways. The effect on the craftful fleet was immediate and catastrophic. Ships spun out of control, their quantum-locked systems trying desperately to compensate for magnetic fields that defied their programming. Vessels collided, shields failed, and the perfect formation dissolved into chaos. Their fleet is dropping like stones, Park reported, unable to keep the awe from his voice. The magnetic distortion is... Wait. He paused, checking his readings. Colonel, they're not just disabled. Their quantum systems are completely fried. They couldn't leave even if they wanted to. Santos watched as the mighty invasion fleet, pride of the craftful empire, transformed into so much orbital debris. Send a message to their flagship. Tell them. She paused, considering her words carefully. Tell them that humanity accepts their surrender. And remind them that next time they consider invading a human colony, they should remember, we don't just think outside the box. Sometimes we destroy the box entirely. As the red dwarf's light painted the sky in shades of crimson, the defenders of New Eden began the work of cleaning up their unconventional victory. They had done more than save a colony. They had sent a message to the galaxy. Underestimate humanity at your own risk. Dr. Chen joined Santos at the window. You know they'll adapt their technology after this. This trick won't work twice. It doesn't need to, Santos replied. Because next time, we'll have something else they won't expect. That's what they don't understand about humans. We never stop innovating. The test chamber at the Jupiter Research Station hummed with energy, its reinforced walls containing what the galaxy's finest minds had declared impossible. Dr. James Chen, grandson of the legendary Emma Chen who had helped save New Eden, stood before a gathered crowd of alien scientists and engineers. Behind him, suspended in a containment field, floated what looked like a simple silver sphere. Distinguished colleagues, he began, his voice steady despite the historic nature of the moment. What you're looking at isn't just an engine. It's proof that everything we know about physics needs to be reconsidered. The assembled aliens, representing the foremost scientific institutions across known space, shifted uncomfortably. Many had traveled light years specifically to debunk what they considered human propaganda. Impossible, declared Kazoth, the Arcturian Physics Council's head researcher. His crystalline form sparkled with skepticism. Your claims violate at least 7 fundamental laws of physics. No drive system can create its own reference frame. It's basic science. James smiled, remembering his grandmother's stories about how aliens always insisted things were impossible right before humans proved them wrong. Perhaps a demonstration would be more convincing than theory. He turned to his control panel. Computer, initiate test sequence alpha. The silver sphere began to hum, a sound that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. The space around it rippled like heat waves off hot pavement. As you know, James continued, conventional faster-than-light travel requires massive energy expenditure to tear holes in space-time. What we've done instead is, he paused, searching for the right words, we've taught space to ignore us. Nonsense. Kizoth interrupted. Space cannot be taught anything. It is a fundamental fabric of reality. Is it? James asked. Or is that just what we've always assumed? Humans have a saying, the map is not the territory. Our understanding of physics is just a map. A very good one, but still just our best attempt to describe reality. What if reality is more flexible than our maps suggest? He gestured at the sphere. This engine doesn't fight against space-time. It creates a quantum resonance that temporarily convinces space that the vessel doesn't exist. No mass, no energy signature, no interaction with normal space. Like a ghost passing through a wall, not by breaking the wall, but by simply not being there. The alien scientists burst into protestations, their various universal translators creating a cacophony of technical objections. James waited patiently for them to finish. Computer, execute test sequence beta. The sphere vanished. The chamber erupted in chaos. Sensors beeped, instruments whirred, and dozens of alien scientists rushed to their equipment, desperate to explain what they'd just witnessed. Impossible, Kizoth declared again, but this time with less certainty. Where did it go? It's still there, James replied calmly. But it's also simultaneously at Alpha Centauri. And no, it didn't move there. It's in both places at once. We've learned that space itself is more of a suggestion than a rule when you know how to ask politely. The sphere reappeared, completely unchanged. James's console displayed the successful test results. Perfect quantum displacement, zero energy expenditure, and confirmation from the Alpha Centauri monitoring station of simultaneous existence at both locations. But the energy requirements, a vegan physicist stammered. The computational power needed to maintain quantum coherence at that scale would be impossible using conventional methods, James agreed. So we didn't use conventional methods. We found that consciousness itself can act as a quantum observer effect stabilizer. The engine doesn't calculate its position, it believes it. He brought up a holographic display showing the engine's inner workings. We based it on studies of human intuition, that gut feeling that lets us know things we shouldn't possibly know. Turns out, consciousness can affect quantum states in ways we're only beginning to understand. This engine doesn't just move through space. It convinces space to work with it rather than against it. The alien scientists stared at the display, their various sensory organs trying to process what they were seeing. Centuries of established physics were being not just challenged, but completely reimagined. It's like teaching physics to dance, James said softly, remembering his grandmother's words. The universe isn't a rigid set of rules, it's a partner. And sometimes, if you ask nicely and show it new steps, it's willing to dance with you. Kizoth's crystalline form had shifted from skeptical blue to a thoughtful green. The implications, if this technology were shared. That's why you're all here, James said. Humanity doesn't want to keep this to ourselves. We want to dance with the universe together as a united galactic community. All we ask is that you keep an open mind about what's possible. As the alien scientists began to cautiously approach the engine, their instruments recording data that would revolutionize physics across the galaxy, James thought about how far humanity had come. From a primitive species barely able to reach their own moon to one that had learned to whisper to the universe itself, the engine hummed quietly in its containment field, a testament to humanity's greatest strength, the ability to dream of the impossible and then find a way to make it real. The Galactic Council's emergency session was unlike any in recorded history. Representatives from every known spacefaring civilization crowded the chamber, their attention fixed on the central hologram, showing a massive structure appearing at the edge of charted space. It was artificial, ancient, and impossibly vast, a construct of dark metal and pulsing energy that dwarfed nearby stars. High Counselor Zixthanar's voice echoed through the chamber. 3 days ago, this structure activated for the first time in what our scientists estimate to be millions of years. It appears to be of precursor origin, the legendary species that vanished from our galaxy eons ago, and it's transmitting a message to humanity. Ambassador Julia Patil, now serving her 20th year as Earth's representative, stood calmly at the podium. Her hair had grayed, but her eyes retained their characteristic intensity. The message was indeed meant for us, she confirmed, and after careful translation, we understand why. It's a warning, not to humanity, but about humanity. The chamber erupted in murmurs. Julia raised her hand for silence. The precursors were not one species, but many. They achieved what we would call technological singularity, merging into a collective consciousness. But before they transcended, they left monitors throughout the galaxy, watchers waiting for something specific. She paused, letting the weight of her words sink in. They were waiting for a species like humanity, one that could see beyond the obvious, that could reshape reality through sheer determination and imagination. One that could make the impossible possible not through superior technology, but through unique perception. The hologram shifted, showing historical footage. The Zalaxian First Contact, where a small research vessel outsmarted an Imperial warship. The New Eden Siege, where colonists turned a planet's magnetic field into a weapon. The quantum engine that defied physics itself. Every species that has tried to conquer or control humanity has disappeared, Julia continued, not because we destroyed them, but because they discovered what the precursors knew. Humanity isn't just another intelligent species. We're a catalyst for change. She gestured, and new images appeared. The quantum engine being freely shared, human medical techniques saving alien lives, Earth's universities filled with students from across the galaxy. The message tells us that humanity's real purpose isn't to rule or dominate, but to inspire, to show the galaxy that the impossible is just something that hasn't been tried yet. The species that disappeared, they didn't die. They evolved. Contact with humanity accelerated their development, pushed them to see beyond their limitations. The chamber was absolutely silent now, every representative transfixed. The precursors left this message as both warning and invitation. A warning to those who would try to suppress humanity's influence, and an invitation to those ready to evolve beyond their current limitations. The hologram showed one final image, a simple human child solving a Rubik's Cube, watched by a group of alien children in amazement. "We don't want to conquer the galaxy," Julia said softly. "We want to help it grow, to show every species that they're capable of more than they imagine." The precursors weren't gods or supreme beings. They were simply the first to understand what humanity represents, the power of possibility. She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes, optical sensors, and sensory organs of each representative. So yes, the message is a warning. Don't mess with humans, not because we'll destroy you, but because we'll change you. We'll show you impossible things and dare you to dream bigger. We'll challenge everything you think you know and invite you to explore beyond your limits. The High Counselor's translator crackled. "And if we choose not to change?" Julia smiled. "That's the beauty of it. You already have. Every species in this chamber has advanced more in the decades since meeting humanity than in centuries before. You've all started asking, what if, instead of accepting impossible? And that's just the beginning." The ancient structure at the edge of space pulsed with energy, its message continuing to broadcast across the galaxy. They are the dreamers, the shapers, the ones who see beyond. Do not fear them. Learn from them. For in their impossible dreams lies the future of all consciousness. As the council chamber buzzed with excited discussion, Julia thought about humanity's journey from a primitive earthbound species to the galaxy's agents of change. They had never needed to be the strongest or most advanced civilization. They just needed to be what they had always been, The species that looked at the impossible and asked, why not? The future stretched before them, infinite in its possibilities, waiting to be shaped by human dreams and alien aspirations combined. The galaxy would never be the same, and that was exactly as it should be.